Pesticides, intended effects and research. Pesticides are intended to be used to target and control the growth of weeds, insects, and diseases by targeting the body systems or enzymes in pests. By doing so, crops and materials are protected and preserved. Examples of pesticides are DDT, DDE, herbicides, and insecticides. The effects of pesticides were originally documented through incident documentation. Today, however, we have studies that are aimed at researching the effects and side effects of pesticides, along with field experiments to observe potential effects.
I'm going to explain the unintended effects on individuals pesticides have. Since pesticides have been used, they have had several positive effects on growth of plants and other things. However, they have also had a lot of negative unintended effects on individuals in a population. These effects range from reproductive failures to neurotoxicity, which can all lead to death and or impaired function of the animal. These effects each affect each individual differently, ranging in severity and effect. As you can see from the chart to the right, which was from the article provided, you can see all the specific individuals of a population and how these pesticides may affect them, such as in mammals. You can see that it can cause neurotoxicity, which can cause altered behavior. Some specifics can be shown on the slide here. So first, this pesticide affects bees by having linked to causing impaired foraging behavior, learning, memory abilities, and others through the pesticides which can block the bee's homing function. This can cause mass colony failure due to the inability of these bees to gather food and other nutrients to support the colony, which could cause full colony failure in the population. Another example would be the pesticide DDT on birds. This is a type of pesticide which in birds can cause the reduction of the eggshell thickness by up to 90%. This causes cracking and failure for live birds to hatch because they're going to crack open and the baby bird isn't going to be able to hatch correctly or grow to full size. It can also cause effects such as neurotoxicity, which can cause acute mortality. So basically, the pesticide will get into the brain and cause the bird to die. Another example would be organophosphates' effect on vertebrates. So these organic phosphates have been linked to cause a variety of effects, including impaired metabolic function, impaired behavior, weight loss, impaired development, and impaired reproductive success. These are terrible things, and these organic phosphates have been linked to severely stunting the individual and even causing death in vertebrates that are affected by these.
Population level effects of pesticides. A population is a particular section of an environment where a group or type of animals is living. All inhabitants of an area are the population. Pesticides can be very detrimental to a population, especially the biodiversity of a population. When introducing a pesticide to a population, specifically aquatic populations, there can be detrimental effects, including toxicity that can kill out several animals. An example of too much pesticides in real life is the canola food poisoning that killed over 100 people due to the contaminated flour that was affected. Community and ecosystem levels can also be affected by pesticides. An ecosystem describes all the living organisms and their physical surroundings in an area, and a community describes the organisms and their interactions with each other. An example of pesticides used in a community that affected the ecosystem is the levels of weed killer that are being washed off of the targeted plants and getting into the drinking water of wildlife. This causes a rise in the water's toxicity.
I'm going to be explaining the effects of global change on pesticide consequences. So global change in pesticides can cause more harm than good. In the figure, it shows what global change does and how pesticides can overtake it, forming dangerous situations for humans and wildlife. For bumblebee workers that are exposed to realistic concentrations of imidacloprid and cyhalothrin have been declining in pollen collecting efficiency. The two pesticides are diminishing overall population collection.
Solutions. Microevolution and future research. Microevolution is evolution that occurs at or below the level of species, usually favoring a certain trait that is originally in a single individual. For microevolution to be able to catch up, pesticide use will need to be reduced. There have been studies that report various populations being able to recover within months when pesticide usage ceased. In order to manage the effects of pesticides, there will need to be more research on various external factors that influence the severity of the effects of pesticides, such as climate change, water temperature, and ecosystem function.